Hello boys and girls, and welcome to another one of Mr. P's drawing tutorials. Today I'm going to be showing you how to draw a samurai cat. Okay, so let's get started. Usually when I'm drawing a character, I always like to start with a nice circle somewhere in the center of my page. Makes a pretty good starting spot for an eye. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then right almost in the middle, just below the middle of my eye, I'm going to draw a nice little horizontal line to represent the bottom lid, and then a nice little cat eye, so a slit. Right to the left of it, I'm going to go ahead and draw a nice rounded upside down triangle. That'll be his cute little nose. And then you can go ahead and draw another little circle. Mine's going to be slightly smaller on the other side of the nose. And then I'm going to draw not only a bottom lid, but also a top lid, leaving some space between them to draw another little slitted eye. So now it looks like my samurai cat is really squinting hard at whoever's looking at him. So from here, we're going to go ahead and draw his little whiskers. So 3 little V's or upside down triangles. And then right down the center of his nose, a straight line, and then an upside down V. We can go ahead and connect those with a few more little whiskers, and then I think he needs 3 nice long whiskers on either side. So 1, 2, 3, and then 3 more. All right, so far so good. Now let's go ahead and from one side of his head to the other, a nice little curve to represent the bottom edge of his helmet. And we're just going to draw 2 straight lines down. And these will be the sides of his head. And then again, straight up and the exact same curve right above it. And this will be the lip of his helmet. And then above that, we'll draw a nice upside down U to show the top of his helmet. And then of course he's gonna need some flaps to the side of this, so these are just gonna be some curved rectangles with a nice little edge to make it look 3D. And we're gonna get a lot of practice in this drawing those 3-dimensional edges on things. So again, that curved rectangle, and notice I just follow the exact same line to make it look a little more 3-dimensional. All right, from here, we're gonna go for those upside down V's or triangles again to create the bottom of our cat's face. Connect them to his whiskers, and there you have it. That's the base of our cat. Draw a little beard for him to show the bottom of his mouth, and that's it. Defining his nose is just a few lines. And let's go ahead and draw a few horizontal lines inside of his bottom lids. And this is going to make it look as though he's really squinting angrily at whoever it is he's staring down. And next, let's go ahead and add some sloped diagonal lines to represent his shoulders. And then we'll bring his arm right down toward the center of his body. Let's give those shoulders a little bit of definition by drawing little rectangles to make them look a little bit more 3-dimensional. So that's just 2 parallel diagonal lines. Close off that rectangle. It'll look like a parallelogram if you're familiar with it. And then we'll do another 2 parallel lines sloping backwards. And now it looks as though his shoulder pads actually have some weight to them. And from here, before I move on to his hands, I'm just going to draw in the collar of his shirt. And we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. Okay, before we start drawing his body, I want to make sure that his hand is in front of him. So I'm going to go ahead and just add in the collar or the cuff of his shirt and his wrist. So that's a little curved line with two diagonals coming out of it. And then we'll go ahead and create the bottom edge of his hand. And this is what's going to be holding on to his samurai sword, or his katana. We'll go ahead and create 3, 4 little bumps, one after the other. And these are going to represent his fingers. And that last little bump, I'm just going to curve around the edge of his sword and then add in his thumb. From here, a nice straight line and another parallel straight line will make up the sheath for his katana. And then we'll just add in the little nub of the other end of his thumb, so it looks like that thumb is wrapped around. Okay, from here, let's draw in the straight edges of the sword. So again, that's just 2 more parallel lines, and then a semicircle to represent the hilt of that katana, or just around the handle that's meant to protect his other hand. We'll draw just a little bit of the handle before we go ahead and start drawing in the fingers of his other paw. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 curves for his fingers, and then a wrap around his hand. And we can just finish with 2 more parallel lines coming out the other end of his hand to represent the rest of the handle to his sword. And now this pattern looks more complicated than it actually is. It's really just going to be X's going up and down the sword. So if you slow this down, it should be very simple. Just one X underneath another X, and so on and so forth. And then it'll eventually look as though the handle is wrapped in a cloth. Okay. From here, we can give him the cuff and elbow of his other arm. Then we're going to draw right up and over to show the crease before we draw one little line in toward his body, and that will be where his armpit meets. You can go ahead and finish the other sleeve, drawing right up to his armpit. And then of course you've got to finish the bottom half of the sword, which is just a little curved rectangle. And now we can go back and start creating those panels we were talking about. So similar to the ones on the shoulders, we're going to draw a curved rectangle and then a little line to give it some depth. And we're going to do exactly the same thing 2 more times right underneath. So again, bit of a wonky rectangle here, and then 2 little diagonal lines to give it some depth, and we'll do 1 more. And there you go. Now his armor actually has some plating. We'll go ahead and finish the side of his body. And maybe give a sharp edge to the sword that's being unsheathed. Maybe a couple diagonal lines to show off that it's shiny. Alright, from here, we'll finish off the other side of his body, and then I think he needs, in classic samurai fashion, some more pads. Yeah, let's give him a few on his forearm. So again, we've got that curved rectangle with a little edge. And I think we can probably fit maybe 2 more. So curved rectangle. When you're done with this, you're going to be an expert at creating these little 3D rectangular prisms. And then of course you need that bottom edge, so we're going to go down and then follow the line, down and follow the line. Alright, there you go. From here, let's give some definition to his upper arm, maybe some creases, show that it's bending. course 3 dots for the whisker of our cat. And then I think we'll just move down to the bottom and create 2 little downward diagonal lines that move outward. And these will be the flaps for the bottom of his suit. So we're going to go ahead and section off one flap. We'll add a little bit of space between them. So we got our second flap. And I think we should be able to fit 2 more. So 2 on each side. Yeah, perfect. And now, just like we've made all of the padding on the rest of his suit 3-dimensional by adding these little lips, we're going to do the same thing and follow the line on the inside of each of these pads, or flaps. So we'll create an inside edge and a bottom edge. And that will go the same for this middle piece. But then we're going to flip it. We're going to put the inside edge on the opposite side for the 2 flaps on the left. And there you have it. Go ahead and close off the collar or cuff of his shirt. And then I think we should probably go ahead and add some armored plates to those flaps so that it really ties in the rest of this suit or costume design. So, little parallelogram. Maybe we can fit 3, moving all the way up. And then, you got it. Let's make those 3-dimensional. So 3 little downward lines and 2 diagonals. Okay, there you go. We can do the exact same thing on the other 3 flaps. So let's go ahead and draw those rectangles in nice and quickly. And then we're going to give it a bottom flap and a side flap. And now remember, when we move on to the other side, that side flap is going to switch to the inside edge. So here's our rectangle. You could just pop the other ones in behind the sword. And here it is. Notice, we've got to flip the inside flap. That's fun to say. Now, most of it's covered up by the sword, so we don't have much to worry about there. Let's go ahead and finish those little armored plates. There you have it. Add those little lines to make them 3-dimensional. And I think we'll move right on to adding a few plates onto his sword hand. Alright. And because that wrist is curved, I think we're going to curve our plates a little bit too. Oh, perfect. Add a bottom edge to the plate so that it pops out a little bit. And there you have it. And now the finishing touches on this costume design. Let's add just a few little bumps around his helmet. And all I'm really doing are adding some points. But you can go ahead and draw little U shapes or tiny C's to show that that helmet is studded. And there he is, Samurai Cat. Alright, so if you have run out of time and you want to save the background and coloring for another session, feel free. But otherwise, let's move on to the setting. So I'm going to go ahead and draw sort of diagonal little shoots that are moving up and away from Samurai Cat. And the first one is going to be done in about 4 segments. And I'm going to make them pretty fine because these are in the background, so I don't want my lines to be as strong as my samurai cat lines. And then I'm going to go ahead and do parallel lines, moving in the same direction to be the opposite side of my bamboo shoot. Alright, now I'm going to bring these down to the ground behind his elbow. And just close them off. Now, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but on the other side, moving in the opposite direction. So notice, I'm going in the opposite diagonal of the one that I've just created, and that's going to help frame our samurai cat and bring the eye toward the center of the page. So again, I've done it in a nice V format, all pointing toward the center of our samurai cat. And now this one's going to be a little bit closer, so I'm going to make this bamboo shoot a little bit thicker than my other one. And again, notice I'm doing it in sections and then adding a little bit of a bump. Okay, those two lines are parallel, so they run in the exact same direction. And go ahead and make sure I draw it in behind him as well. Make sure not to overlap any of the samurai cat that we've drawn in the foreground. And now you can go ahead and add as many of those as you like in the background. I think I'm going to add another bigger one here. And making it thicker and longer is also going to make it look as though it's a little bit closer to the foreground. Same thing in sections. And I think I can fit in one or two more, so I'll do one small one in the background here. I'm also making it thinner, and automatically it looks as though it's farther away than the other bamboo shoots. Let's do another little one in the background here. Make it nice and fine and nice and skinny. And if you notice, the segments on the smaller, farther back bamboo shoots are much shorter than the ones that are closer to the foreground. Now let's go ahead and fit in maybe one more on the left-hand side. And again, we're going to make a bigger one. So this one's going to look as though it's much closer to the viewer, which also means those sections have to be a little bit longer. We'll make it wider here and bring it right down to the ground. Okay, and now on each shoot, I'm just going to draw little curved horizontal lines at each segment. And this is going to make these look closer to bamboo shoots. Now, of course, you are welcome to color your samurai cat however you see fit. If you want a blue cat, make it a blue cat, but here is how Mr. P colored in his. Remember, if you love Mr. P's characters and his drawing tutorials and you would like to see more, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and comment below. Until next time, happy doodles!